In this session, we meet a man who disobeyed God. He had been given clear instructions, and he heard those instructions and he thought, no big deal. In our previous session in chapter 6, God made it very clear to the people of Israel after he delivered Jericho into their hands that no one was to take any of the plunder for themselves. Don't rummage through the wreckage to retrieve any garments of clothing, any gold, any silver. It's all devoted to him. And the Israelites hear this, and one man, his name is Achan, he thinks to himself, no big deal. And he gets very comfortable in disobedience. He hears God's instructions, and he chooses sin instead. He takes some of the plunder for himself. And as we take a look at Joshua chapter 7 and Joshua chapter 8 in this session, we are very quickly going to see two dangers of living in such a way that we get very comfortable in our sin, that we cozy up with disobedience to God's instructions. Let me go ahead and just share with you the first danger of getting cozy with sin. The first danger is that sin infects us. Sin has a way of infecting not just the sinner, but those around the person who sinned. Sin has a way of wreaking havoc and affecting those near us. That's certainly true in Achan's story. We begin reading in chapter 7, verse 1. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now, did you catch that? The Israelites were unfaithful. Collectively, as a whole, the Israelites were unfaithful? No. Only one man was unfaithful. Only Achan was unfaithful. And yet they're all treated as unfaithful. That doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair to treat all of them collectively as unfaithful when only one man was unfaithful. And that's because as Americans, as Westerners, we tend to be more individualistic in our thinking. We tend to think that my choices are my choices and your choices are your choices. I shouldn't be punished by your choices and you shouldn't be punished by my choices. That my sin is between me and God, not me, you, and God. But most of the world is not individualistic in its thinking. Most of the world is collectivistic in its thinking. And a collectivistic culture, like the culture of the Israelites, believed that the sin of one affects the many. That sin has an infectious nature, that when one person sins, several are impacted, that my personal sin isn't really personal, that my private sin has corporate consequences. And that was certainly true with Achan. His sin would impact those around him. 36 men will lose their lives because of Achan's sin. Joshua decides to send out a couple of spies to the nearby town of Ai, spelled A-I. These spies, they go and they scope out the city and they come back with a pretty positive report. Easy peasy, piece of cake, don't worry about it, we can take them. You know what, we don't even need to send all of our troops. Just send a couple units, 2,000 or 3,000, that's plenty. So that's what Joshua does. He sends just a couple units or a couple thousand troops, and they get defeated. 36 men lose their lives because one man, Achan, sinned. Sin is infectious. It impacts those around us. Joshua gets word of this defeat and he tears his robes. He mourns. He falls on the ground. He can't understand why God would allow this to happen. But God allows it because of the infectious nature of sin. And this reveals to us the second danger of getting very comfortable with sin. The second danger of getting comfortable with sin is that sin is serious. God takes sin very seriously. Notice how seriously God responds to sin in verses 14 and 15. God says, "In the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe the Lord chooses shall come forward clan by clan. The clan the Lord chooses shall come forward family by family. And the family the Lord chooses shall come forward man by man. Whoever is caught with the devoted things shall be destroyed by fire, along with all that belongs to him. He has violated the covenant of the Lord and has done an outrageous thing in Israel." That's a pretty startling approach to addressing sin, but it highlights how serious God takes sin. I mean, imagine if God responded to our sin in our churches the same way. Hey, next Sunday, we're going to divide you into 3 categories. There are going to be those who attend a small group, those who attend a Sunday school class, and those who attend neither. And the guilty party is going to be identified by one of those 3 categories. If the small group category is chosen, then we'll call every small group forward, group by group. And the group with the guilty member will be selected. And from that group, we'll bring forward family by family, and the family with the guilty party will be chosen. We'll bring that family forward, member by member, and the guilty member will be identified. We'll kill them, but doesn't really matter because we're going to kill the whole family anyway and burn their house down. Dear, that sounds a little extreme, doesn't it? And yet that's how extreme God takes sin in this story. God takes sin very seriously. So when you and I examine ourselves and reflect on our own sinfulness, how should we respond to it when we recognize that sin is both infectious and serious? What do we do in response to our sin? I think the rest of Joshua chapter 7 answers that question. We destroy sin before our sin destroys us. I mean, the people of Israel are willing to go to drastic measures to deal with sin in their midst so that it doesn't create any more destruction. Achan gets singled out as the guilty party. When he does, Joshua encourages Achan to come clean. Verse 19, Joshua says to Achan, "My son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me." And to Achan's credit, he confesses. He owns up to his sin. He tells Joshua, I know God said, don't take any of the plunder from Jericho, but I couldn't help it. I saw some clothes, some garments. I saw some gold, some silver, and I wanted it, so I took it. I went and I buried it underneath my tent. You can go and you can find it there. And so Joshua sends a couple of his men, and they verify, yep, there it is, right there underneath his tent. And so they bring Achan and his entire family. They stone him to death, they burn their bodies, and they heap up a pile of stones on top of them. They take pretty drastic measures to destroy sin. And it sounds like it's kind of unfair to Achan's family. They end up losing their lives because of Achan's sin. And it's possible that they're kind of innocent bystanders like the 36 individuals who lost their lives in battle at the beginning of the chapter. But it's also possible that Achan's family participated in his guilt. Maybe they aided him. If they weren't aiding him, maybe they were complicit. They probably at least knew that he had taken these items and that he had hidden them under their tent. And so that makes them complicit in the sin. We just see how drastically they respond to sin. They destroy sin before sin destroys them. Now notice the contrast between Rahab in chapter 6 and Achan in chapter 7. Rahab saves her entire family because of her faithful response. Achan causes his entire family to die because of his unfaithful response. These two stories, side by side, are meant to both encourage and caution. They encourage us to live lives of faithful trust in God, and they caution us against the infectious, serious, destructive nature of sin. Now, so far, we've been focusing on Achan's guilt. But Achan isn't the only person in the story who made a mistake. We saw at the beginning of chapter 7 that Joshua failed to consult God. Had he consulted God, God would have made it evident, I'm not with you on this one, Joshua. I don't want you attacking the city of Ai. There is sin in your midst that needs to be dealt with. If you go, I'm not with you. But Joshua didn't consult God. He failed to do that. And because he failed to consult God, 36 men lose their lives. And Joshua is broken up about it. He's distraught. He has lost his courage. But God wants Joshua to have a second chance. God wants the people of Israel to have a second chance at capturing and taking the city of Ai. But there's something that Joshua and the people of Israel need if God's going to give them this second chance. God knows that Joshua needs courage. A new chance requires renewed courage. Because Joshua had lost his courage, God knew he needed to get it back. And so he says to Joshua in chapter 8, verse 1 and 2, "Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up and attack Ai. For I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land. You shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may carry off their plunder and livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush behind the city." God tells Joshua, don't be afraid, don't be discouraged. He's not just telling Joshua not to be afraid or discouraged. He's pointing him back to the beginning of the book. Back in chapter 1, when God commissions Joshua, you might remember that several times in that first chapter, God tells Joshua, be strong, be courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. By repeating that here, he's reminding Joshua what he's been called to do. He's telling you, Joshua, renew your courage. But he also gives Joshua some instructions. Helps Joshua and the people of Israel know what they're going to have to do. And that helps us see that courage by itself is not enough to accomplish what God wants us to accomplish. Because courage needs something else. Courage needs obedience. Renewed courage requires faithful obedience. They're going to have to very closely and meticulously follow God's instructions. God tells them, I want you to ambush Ai. And we see very quickly that they don't hesitate. They faithfully obey. Look at the beginning of verse 3. So Joshua and the whole army moved out to attack Ai. They didn't wait. They didn't hesitate. They took action. They faithfully obeyed right away. Now, as we read through the next couple paragraphs, there's a little bit of confusion about exactly what happens when you compare verses 3 through 9 with verses 10 through 13. For example, how many troops does Joshua send to ambush? Is it 5,000? Is it 25,000? Is it 30,000? And how many nights do they set up camp before the battle begins? Is it one night? Is it 2 nights? So let me do my best to try and kind of sketch out what I think happens over the next 10 verses. Joshua gathers up some troops, 30,000 or 30 units. The Hebrew word for 1,000 can either mean 1,000 or it can mean units. So it could be 30,000 troops or it could be 30 units of troops. And from the 30,000 or 30 units, he chooses 5, either 5,000 or 5 units. and he tells them to set up an ambush behind the city of Ai. Now, Ai and Bethel are about 1 or 2 miles apart. So in between Bethel and Ai, they're going to hang out on the west side of Ai, and they're just going to wait. And eventually, Joshua and the others, they're going to be on the north side of Ai, and they're going to kind of function as bait, drawing out the king of Ai and his troops to come out and attack Joshua. They're going to fake a retreat, and that's when the 5,000 or the 5 units in ambush are going to come and take the city of Ai, which is going to be unguarded. And so he lays out the plan for the 5 units or the 5,000, and he dismisses them. That night, Joshua and the remaining 25,000 or 25 units, they stay in their camp. The next morning, they get up and they head north of Ai. And they make camp there that night, hoping to be noticed, hoping to be spotted, hoping to be seen. And then Joshua himself heads down a valley that's between their camp and Ai, and that's where he hangs out for the night. And that gets us through verse 13. And it's at this point that we see what happens when we faithfully obey God. Because renewed courage requires faithful obedience. But faithful obedience, well, it opens up opportunity. When you and I choose to faithfully obey God, it can open up a door of opportunity for us to partner with God in what He is already up to, what God plans to do. And that's what happens with Joshua and the people. They faithfully obey, and a door opens up for them to work alongside and partner with God's plan. We see a little bit further here, verse 14, when the king of Ai saw this, he and all the men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle at a certain place overlooking the Arabah. But he did not know that an ambush had been set against him behind the city. The ambush worked. The trick worked. The king, he sees Joshua and he sees all the other troops and he thinks to himself, let's finish what we started. We only killed 36 of them last time. Let's go ahead and let's make a larger dent this time. Let's go out and attack. And they go out and they attack Joshua and the troops, and Joshua and the troops, they fake it really well. Oh no, whatever shall we do? Retreat. And they fake a retreat. And the king of Ai and all the men, they chase after Joshua and the troops, essentially leaving Ai unguarded. Look at verse 17. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit of Israel. The mention of Bethel and Ai together might indicate that Ai was kind of like a military outpost for the city of Bethel. I mean, the word Ai means ruins. It's very possible that it was an uninhabited city of ruins that functioned as a military outpost, protecting the city of Bethel from the east. And when all of the soldiers who were stationed at Ai, when they leave, those who are stationed back home at Bethel, they decide to come out and join them. Somehow, not noticing the 5,000 or 5 units of troops in between Bethel and Ai, they go right past them and join their forces north of Ai. That leaves Ai unguarded. And that's when God tells Joshua, Joshua, extend your arm with your javelin in hand. And so Joshua does. He extends his arm with his javelin in hand, and that must have been a cue to the 5,000 or 5 units between Bethel and Ai to get up, go attack Ai, and capture it, because that's exactly what they do. They destroy the city of Ai. And when the king of Ai and all the troops see what happened, realize they'd been tricked, they turn around and they realize the trap has been set. And Joshua and his troops, they turn back around and they attack and they destroy the people of Ai. 12,000 people. Let me draw our attention to the very last sentence of verse 29. And they raised a large pile of rocks over it, which remains to this day. Rocks, stones, actually play a pretty significant role in the book of Joshua. Back in chapter 4, when Joshua and the Israelites cross the Jordan on dry ground, they grab some large stones and they take them to build an altar as a reminder of God's faithfulness. In the previous chapter, in chapter 7, after Achan's family is killed with stones, a large pile of stones is piled on top of them as a cautionary tale of their destructiveness related to their sin. And here we have a city, a city named Ruins, that has a pile of stones heaped up on top of it. A city named Ruins becomes a heap of ruins. And then in the very last portion of chapter 8, now that they've defeated Ai, Joshua leads the people out to a location between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. Most scholars believe it would be Shechem, even though Shechem is not mentioned in the text. And on that location, they build an altar out of, you guessed it, stone, rocks, and the people hear the law read to them. And the building of the altar, the reading of the law, is meant to reinforce three important truths. Sin is serious. Obedience matters. God is faithful. And so as we reflect on our own sinfulness, our own shortcomings, our own weakness, let me just encourage you to destroy sin before your sin destroys you, because our sin is infectious and serious. And let me remind you that obedience matters. And through it all, God is faithful.